So I think I will wait till about 2 after the hour.
Microphone check. Anyone out there live?
I can hear you.
And I can hear you. That's the important part. I have a conflicting meeting, and so I'll just listen. And Karsten and I will get back to you on that expert review on the join proxy today.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and I think it is time to start. We have a few more people. So welcome to the apparently the 12th CBOR interim meeting of the year. Karsten, we'll start with your, first we have, I guess, Marco, as usual, you're going to be our note taker. Yeah, I see he's listed on there. Good. Thanks again, Marco, as always. Karsten, off to you.
Oh, I am already unmuted.
Yeah, there you go.
Very confusing. I was looking how to unmute myself and I already was unmuted. Okay, thank you. So this is a midsummer meeting. It's too bad that Christian can't be here because he had most of the comments that I reacted to. So I think we have 4 items on the agenda, which is in the notes. You probably should have a look at the notes in parallel to the meeting. Actually 5 items. 3 are on the slides. The CBOR Pact, the discussion about array tags and related tags that shapeshift CBOR, and the progress on the alternative union tags. And then we have the agenda for IETF-114 and any other business which might include the times we choose for the interim meetings for the fall. So if you have anything else, this would be a good time to speak up. Otherwise, I'll just move forward. So we had a pretty lively discussion about CBOR Pact, and this means that we made some pretty pervasive changes. We didn't really change the underlying mechanism very much, but we repackaged it in a way that makes it simpler and probably more powerful. So we used to have prefix and suffix tables for packing, and we simplified this to a single argument table. So we have a share table and an argument table now. We brought up the idea of a function tag. The default function continues to be concatenation. So we have straight sharing and we have concatenation from the argument tables, straight sharing from the sharing tables and concatenation from the argument tables. And we add a way to actually explicitly specify a function. And I have a couple of slides on what the first one of those should be. We had some pretty bad terminology in the intermediate version, which talked about a type 0 and a type 1 reference. These have now been simplified to straight and inverted references. They only differ in the question which part becomes the left-hand side and which part becomes the right-hand side. And this also simplified the way we find the function tag, because the function tag, if present, always is on the left-hand side. So that's what happened in -06. And we said we wanted to have one function defined. Originally, we had the idea to have a midfix function, which is between the prefix and suffix. But it actually turns out we can generalize and simplify this to a join function. So this works exactly like Python join or like Ruby join, except that Ruby join is the other way around from Python join. This is really funny for someone who speaks both languages. And the idea of a join function is that you supply it with an array of items to be concatenated, and you provide a joiner or intersperser that is put between every pair of items out of the array. So broken or vertical bar dot join of foo and bar becomes foo vertical bar bar. Bar is maybe not such a great meta variable when you're talking about vertical bars. Sorry. Okay, the interesting observation here is this function is not commutative. So that will come up in a couple of slides. So we already had an example, and I have slightly updated this example now, where we have a target of an array with 3 URIs. And we want to put this together out of a common part, the pack.example, and prefix and suffix. And I probably mistyped this, sorry. Wow, okay, so this is totally wrong. Yeah, so you need to imagine that the target looks different from what I have on these slides. Sorry about that. So the idea is that the actual rump table takes HTTPS and foo.html and puts this around the pack.example. This is essentially a call to the join function where the array is HTTPS and foo.html, and the joiner, the intersperser, is pack.example. And this way you can put together these 3 URIs, and sorry, the text on the top is the wrong target from a previous example, sorry. And the same thing can also be done the other way round, and this shows in the second column, and this shows some flexibility of being able to specify the function tag on the using side and not in the argument table. So in the left hand side example, we had the 106, the function tag on the joiner. So when you use that and you reference that, then you implicitly activate this function tag and put things together based on that. On the right-hand side, the function tag is at the side where the argument is being used. And that, of course, has the advantage that we can leave this out. So, for instance, where we put together the mail to URI, we don't really need a joiner. We can use simple concatenation, and simple concatenation is the default. So we don't need a function tag for that. So this shows the fact that we have reference tags that offer both orders. The 6 is the straight reference to argument table entry 0, and 216 is this inverted reference to argument tag 0. And you probably have noticed that there are two different function tags here, 106 and 105, because by inverting things, you actually also have to invert the sense of the function tag. So we actually need to define two function tags for a non-commutative function that actually makes sense in these two combinations. Now we could maybe arrange reference tags in such a way that they fit the example on the previous slide, but then this is an example where we actually need both directions of the reference tag with the same direction of the function tag. So in essence, we have 4 different combinations, and 1 bit for those 4 cases comes out of the reference tag, and the other bit needs to come out of the function tag, assuming that we have a non-commutative function. If we have a commutative function, then of course it does make a difference and we only need 1 function tag. Or if we have something that only ever happens in 1 direction, we would also not need a second function tag. So that's the somewhat bitter result of running through this example. We may need 2 tags to accommodate a particular function. Okay, so that's the result of the discussion here. And I made some very simple slides. You probably really have to read the document to get at the finer points. But the result is that we now have a relatively simple set of tools in our toolkit that we can combine in a pretty flexible way, and this is exactly how this should look like. So I think we are pretty much done with this. The only remaining question is how many of these other items that came up at the end of the last meeting do we want to address here? So one question was, do we have a way to address sequences? And it probably makes sense to have an unwrap splicing kind of construction, but maybe that has to go into sequences and not into packed. I don't have a strong opinion on that. The second question was, do we want to address any further function tags? And the candidate here was the curry, but that probably better goes into something in the context of the core working group, which needs this function tag for operating on concise resource identifiers. So it's not really something that CBOR should be doing. And the third question was, do we have something convenient we can do with the fact that we have only a few type pairings in the reference tags that actually make sense. So a whole world is essentially unused here. But on the other hand, nobody has come up with something useful to do there. So maybe we could just leave it as it is. So that is my status of CBOR packed. And the next step, of course, will be to update the implementations to what we have changed in the last version. And I hope we will be able to discuss the implementations at the 114 meeting. Any questions?
Sounds like it's all spot on.
Good. Yeah, again, it's too bad that Christian is not here because this was mainly reacting to his comments. Okay, so let's move on. And that's probably the part that Kel is interested in. We have a long-running discussion in the CBOR working group about how to actually define tag validity in terms of what can go into the tag content. And we had several discussions about something called semantic tag validity, but this turned out to be pretty wishy-washy. And for 8949, we stuck with the structural tag validity that most people probably had implemented in their decoders and validators. So a tag essentially looks at the shape, what it finds in its tag content, and if this doesn't look like what it expects, then we have an invalid tag. So an example of this is the multi-dimensional array, which is all about arrays, obviously. And the data item that goes into the tag content of a multi-dimensional array is an array of two items, one of which is an array of dimensions, and the other one is an array of the actual elements of the multi-dimensional array. And as you can see from the slightly shortened text from the RFC, this gets a bit complicated. The outer array is always a CBOR major type 4 array. The dimension array is always a CBOR major type 4 array, but the element array can be either such a major type 4 array or a typed array or a homogeneous array, which are tags that are defined in that RFC. So essentially we have tags defined in this RFC that hold something, hold some data that are meant to stand in for actual CBOR arrays. They have the same function, but at the site where this is used, we actually have to say that this needs to be allowed. And that's of course bad because it leads to an extensibility problem, and that's exactly the problem that Kel has at the moment. He wants to extend this, and now the question is, what do we do with the existing multidimensional array tag, or do we need to define a new tag that has exactly the same meaning just because we have one more tag that can stand in for a CBOR array? So really, this is a festering problem that we haven't found a good way to attack. But with CBOR Pact, of course, this becomes completely impossible, this approach, because the reference tags in CBOR Pact also go into random places into other tags. And so the shape that the tag finds has an unexpected reference tag, possibly. And we need to find a way to allow CBOR Pact to do this. And when we allow CBOR Pact to do this, we might as well provide some license for other tags to do this as well. So a CBOR Pact reference tag, again, would stand in for what it references. And this idea of a tag standing in for some shape that is expected, that is maybe the principle that we would be working on. So the idea is to make explicitly an equivalence principle. So this is not yet full concept of semantic tags, but it goes into that direction a bit. So what we have today is tags can define the shape of their tag content, so they define down from the tag, but they cannot define up. And the new idea is that tags can define what shape their users, their environment should see when they look down into tag content that has this tag. So this is about two tags being nested, maybe with interspersing arrays and maps and so on. And by saying that a tag is equivalent to the array or the map or some other structure that it actually stands for, we can avoid having to change the surrounding tag. And so we can, for instance, have a data compression tag that can be used in all places where a byte string can be used. Or we can have a new typed array tag, for instance, for some other popular floating point format like bfloat16, that can stand in for where the existing set of typed arrays or even standard CBOR arrays can stand in. And what we have with the typed arrays is essentially we have this stand-in concept already, but we have it in a very limited way. We have kind of jailed it to the particular environment that we were looking at in this ROC, and that's probably wrong. Yeah, so I think this is a good idea, but a good idea is just that. So we need to write this up, and I'm wondering what the best form is that we can give to this. So, for instance, we could simply use CBOR packed as a document, because we're working on the document, to establish this equivalence principle. And then other people who register tags like LZ4 compression or bfloat16 floats or whatever can simply reference that. We could also put it into those specific tag definitions, but I think it's a bit weird to have one tag definition essentially reach into the internal mechanics of CBOR and change the way tag validity works. I was also thinking about whether this actually updates 8949, because 8949 defines tag validity in a structural way. And I was also thinking about whether this can be opt-in. So that's a number of questions we probably need to clarify. Again, my current favorite is just putting this into the PACT document, because that's one we have in the pipeline and it's actually needed for PACT. So we should be doing this. But yeah, I'm open to other ideas how to do this.
I have a question. Would it make sense to make this opt-in on a per tag basis? Is that what you mean by opt-in?
I have problems hearing you.
Oh,
can you
okay.
say
You
that
hear me now?
again? I'm just English is not my native language.
Okay.
Can you just say this slowly again?
The opt-in part, I had a question about. Would it be opt-in on a per tag basis? So would a tag basically would it be in the definition of a tag or description of a tag that that it would accept any, I don't know, semantic convertible, or what did you call the stand-in types, or would this work for every tag automatically?
Well, we have 100 or so tags defined. So saying that each of these tags needs to position themselves to this is a non-starter. We can't get this going, I think. So opt-in was more on the same level as people opt in to deterministic encoding or to indefinite length strings. So it's one other check mark you would make when you say, oh, my CBOR decoder actually can do tag validity by equivalence.
Yeah, okay. So you would do it on the decoder encoder side, or I guess decoder side.
Yes, and of course the other opt-in is that to say that there even is a equivalence relationship, that's really opt-in for the specific tag that establishes this. So if I do an LZ4 compression tag, I would explicitly say this tag can occur in all places where byte strings can occur. And that's the opt-in by the tag that goes into the equivalence.
Yeah, my question was whether the tag that consumes such tags, if they need to opt in too, so that, for example, that we would only allow this on things like typed arrays or multi-dimensional arrays. Yeah, because that's another way you could opt in.
Yeah, but that becomes an n by n problem, and I'm not sure how to avoid this becoming a quadratic problem.
Yeah, I agree that it's more useful if you don't make every tag opt in. So I'm leaning toward it makes more sense. I mean, your initial suggestion that it's opt in on the basis of the decoder, like you mentioned. What is it called? The encoding, the standard encoding.
Deterministic?
Deterministic, yeah, exactly. Deterministic encoding. It's opt-in on that level, on the similar level. So yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely easier to. It's maybe more useful. It allows each encoder to make the decision themselves, and then each tag doesn't have to deal with it.
Yeah, we only have to be careful that we don't fragment the situation by every decoder making a slightly different decision. So I think that we should ask for a wholesale opt-in in those cases.
But I was thinking that like if you take pact for an example, what would it mean if you had? Can you have recursive pact?
Yes.
What would, so is this something that people are thinking is a use case, or?
Well, it's not a use case. It's just a mechanism that can be used in various use cases. And one use case is that we often have extremely complicated JSON data structures, and these need some way of collapsing branches that are copies of each other. That's how this whole thing started. And then we noticed that the query mechanism that is often used in JSON also can benefit from using the pact mechanism and so on. So that's an example for a use case for pact. Not sure I answered your question.
It was not really a question. It was, well, I mean, I was asking if you guys already have use cases for like recursive applications of pact as an example, right? Because you could have pact generate some string, which then is used as an input to another pact, right?
Yes.
Yes.
We definitely have that. So you have to be careful with the term recursive, because recursive actually means recursive, which these use cases are not. They are arbitrarily nested. And yes, we have use cases for arbitrarily nested applications of pact. it cannot be recursive because there would be no way to end a recursion.
I meant recursion in the sense that as a decoder, you always have to you can never when you're parsing the data item for a tag, you always have to recursively look at the next data item, and this could go many levels deep until you can decide if the outer tag is correct. So in that sense, it's like yeah. I'm not sure if that's a correct definition of use of recursion, but
yeah, that's why it's so difficult to use the term recursion, because it really means something on very many different levels. But if you do a validity check, then of course you have to resolve all those stand-in relationships that govern this validity, and that may be packed, that may be something like LZ4 tags or some alternative floating point formats. All these go into validity considerations. So the idea how to handle this in an implementation is that of an accessor function. So if you have an accessor that allows you to go into a CBOR data structure, and that accessor finds something that stands in for something else, it delivers that something else. And that indeed is in a loop until it returns something that is genuine and doesn't stand for itself.
So, okay, so and then the second question, main question I had was, you mentioned typed arrays at the bfloat 16 example. And that, so in the example, in the LZ4 example, it's very clear cut what's going on, because you would define that the LZ4 tag produces an equivalent to a byte string, basically. Yes. And that's defined in the main CBOR RFC 8949. But in the bfloat 16 case, I mean, what are you producing? You're producing a typed array, so you somehow need to define a class of things that's that meets the definition of typed array.
Yeah, that already is defined in RFC 8746.
Right, but it doesn't include bfloat 16. So if you're trying, I'm saying it as their tag author, like if you're trying to add another type to the typed array class, like there's no defined class in that sense. I mean, you could just say as if it were a typed array, but
well, it is a typed array once you define a tag for it. So in the specific example of a bfloat 16, the stand-in relationship is that this looks exactly like a float 32 array after you have replaced every set of 2 bytes by those 2 bytes and 2 0 bytes. So that's a very simple stand-in relationship.
I mean, but see the typed array example. I mean, there are in the 8746 document, you have a list of different types that are supported, and then it describes those collectively as typed arrays. But if you after that then define a new type, so bfloat 16 is not any of the original types, so you're basically expanding the scope of the list of types that are in typed array in that sense. So you have, I'm just wondering if you've given thought to how that would be written as if I was writing a tag for bfloat 16, how would I express this so it would be correct?
Yeah, that's an interesting editorial exercise, which I haven't done, but which I also don't think is really complicated. I mean, you would essentially say you treat it like the other typed arrays, and that would be it.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that would work for me if that's clear enough. But
I think it would be a good exercise to actually go through this and define those tags. in the next couple of weeks or so, so we know that we can pull this off.
Well, I guess I guess what my question is maybe it probably makes sense. So whatever document gets written, you mentioned putting these definitions as part of the packed RFC. I'm not sure. I mean, it's fine for me, but I don't know if it makes more if it's a big enough change that it warrants its own RFC, and then the pact would just depend on that RFC. I don't know if that makes more sense, but either way, I'm asking if wherever this is defined, it probably makes sense to somehow put this framework in this in the new RFC to easily allow tag authors to do things like this, so that it's not so wishy-washy. I mean, yeah, you could just write, yeah, it's a typed array. But I don't know if that's good enough. And then there's the other question about like discoverability, because how does that? I mean, if a decoder doesn't know about that, I guess it's fine. I mean, if there's a new tag, I guess if they don't know about the tag, they can't do anything about that. But I wonder if also something needs to be said about how error handling should work for decoders that opt in, because I guess any tag that a decoder doesn't know about could have been something that stands in for the type they expect.
Yes.
So I don't know if something needs to be said about that too in the RFC.
Probably. I think that's a good point. To me, it seems we want to put the actual equivalence principle into the CBOR pack document, and then write another document which might become an RFC or may just be a registration. We have this registration mechanism in CBOR that defines how to do LZ4 and how to do bfloat 16 arrays. And if when we write this, we find, well, this is a little bit more than just your garden variety tag registration, then we should look at whether this needs to be a normative RFC. Great, Kel, I appreciate that you could make it to this meeting on such short notice. I think that was really, having that use case was really useful.
And from my side, I think this is a great solution. It would solve our problems at least. So good. I hope this can. I don't know what the process is. Is this a proposal is going to be written? Is this? Do you think this is more or less the direction that will be pursued then?
Well, yeah, I think we have to do a working group last call for the CBOR pack document or any other document that establishes this equivalence principle. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that the actual tag registrations or tag definitions need to be written that define these compression and typed array tags. We have one document called the notable tags document that already has a few such tag definitions. We could put it in there, or if you want to do this in a more independent way, you can just write it up, put it somewhere on GitHub and tell IANA to register it. So there are several ways of doing this, and they have different amounts of independence on one side and support from people who are in the working group on the other side. So we can always decide how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I might send I might register a tag that meets this use case in the next few days. I guess I'll just write stand in. I can already use the language stand in that description, I guess. I think that's, yes. Yeah, I think that's fine. That works for me. Thank you.
Great. Because the next item on the list is actually reporting that we went through the same kind of process on a different subject. On the alternative/union tag, we had some discussions with the authors, and this text actually went into the notable text document in this case, because it's a pretty generic tag that can be used in many situations. And the authors told me today that they plan to go through with the INA registration. This is vacation time, so they in Europe, so they didn't do this immediately when I asked them whether they wanted to do this, but this is going forward. So this is just a quick report, but it's also something that is an example for how something like these tags here can be handled. Good. If we are done with this, so I take as an action to write the section about the stand-in principle or the equivalence principle in the CBOR Pact document, and have that done by the 24th when the Internet Draft Archive opens again, which is a little bit short before the CBOR meeting at IETF-114, but you can follow the repository as well, of course. So Barry, you had some points about IETF-114 agenda. Didn't put up a slide for that.
Yeah, so this was Christian put that on, and then told me that he couldn't be here to talk about it. Is there? I guess the thing is there something we need to talk about? Okay, no, this one. Let's just do your union. Yeah, do your union tags one.
There was a interruption for me. I don't know if everybody else heard that. Can you say it again?
Oh, sorry, yeah. My network seems to be a little funny today. But yeah, so just go on with whatever's left in your slide deck, and we'll.
Okay. I only have this last slide for the
Right.
fall interim meetings. So there was a proposal from the core work group chairs to use the dates you see on the right-hand side of the slide for core meetings, which would leave the dates that are on the left-hand side for the CBOR working group. And the question is whether that's a good cadence for interims between 114 and 115.
Now, unfortunately, Ian is not on today, and he's the one who usually has the ongoing issue. But this cadence that's proposed keeps our every 2-week pattern, which should still be good with Ian, I think. I think we'll need to put this on the mailing list and make sure that it's okay. But does anybody on the call today see an issue with this schedule? Okay. So that's all we need to do with this today, and I will post this to the mailing list after the call and confirm it. So let's see what we have. Christian put on the proposed IETF-114 agenda. Does anybody have any discussion about the proposed 114 agenda? Anything you think should be added, or any questions? Now we're good with those 3 items. Okay. Okay, so hearing no discussion there, I think we're done with that. Anything else we need to discuss today? Are we likely, Karsten, to have any document updates at the beginning of IETF week?
Yes. So as I said, I think we want to have a new version of PEC that has this equivalence principle.
Right.
And any other comments that come in? On the tag side, we might get some input on the time tag, because the CDH working group is making some progress. And of course, the whole CDDL 2.0 thing needs to go forward. And I have collected some stuff that just needs to be cast into internet drafts. So with some luck, that might happen before the 24th.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that was the main question. Will that get done by then? We don't meet until Thursday, right? So that does give us the whole week to peruse whatever gets posted early in the week.
Right.
Okay. All right. Anything else for today? Does anyone have anything to comment on? Any other business? Anything you want to chat about? Hearing nothing, I thank everybody for coming today, and we will see you in Philadelphia or virtually there.
See you virtually then.
See you on site.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.